Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alerts started going off all around the International Space Station. He floated over to the main console and saw something that made his blood run cold. Dozens of massive objects were moving toward Earth from the outer edges of the solar system. They were huge and clearly not natural. Jake had been in space for 6 months, but he had never seen anything like this before. Down on Earth, Dr. Sam Collins was working late at the Deep Space Communications Array when his equipment picked up the same signals the objects were sending out, some kind of transmission, but it was unlike anything humans had ever received. Sam tried to decode the message while calling his supervisor. Within minutes, the facility was buzzing with activity as scientists and government officials rushed to understand what was happening. The objects kept getting closer and closer to Earth. Military satellites tracked their movement and confirmed what everyone was starting to fear. These were ships and they were coming fast. President Lisa Martinez was woken up at 3 in the morning and rushed to an emergency meeting with her top advisors. The Secretary of Defense briefed her on what they knew so far, which was not much except that something big was headed their way. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship looking at the blue-green planet ahead. The Valdorian Empire had conquered 47 worlds using the same basic plan. Show up with overwhelming force and demand surrender. Most species gave up without a fight once they saw the size of the Valdorian fleet. Those that resisted were crushed quickly and efficiently. Earth looked like it would be another easy victory. The Valdorians had been expanding across the galaxy for over 300 years. Their technology was advanced and their military was strong. They had never met a species that could seriously challenge them. When their scouts first detected Earth, they saw a world with primitive technology and no real space presence. The humans had barely managed to put a few small stations in orbit around their planet. It seemed like it would be the easiest conquest yet. Jake Morrison received the first direct transmission from the alien fleet when they were still 2 days away from Earth. The message was short and simple: surrender your world or face complete destruction. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking in perfect English. Jake realized the aliens had been studying human communications for some time before making contact. President Martinez convened an emergency session of the United Nations within hours of receiving the alien message. Representatives from every major nation gathered to discuss how to respond. Some wanted to try diplomacy, while others pushed for immediate military preparation. General Pete Walker briefed the assembly on Earth's defensive capabilities, which were limited to a few orbital weapons platforms and missile defense systems. Drive Collins worked around the clock trying to establish better communication with the approaching fleet. He sent multiple messages asking for negotiations and more time to consider their demands. The aliens responded with the same message over and over: surrender or be destroyed. They seemed completely uninterested in any kind of diplomatic discussion. The Valdorian fleet consisted of 12 massive warships, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. Admiral Kethvar had brought enough firepower to level entire continents if necessary. He expected the humans to surrender as soon as they saw what they were up against. In his experience, primitive species always chose survival over pointless resistance. As the alien ships entered Earth's solar system, panic began to spread across the planet. Stock markets crashed and millions of people fled major cities. Religious leaders held prayer services, while scientists worked desperately to find some way to defend against the invasion. The president addressed the world trying to maintain calm while preparing for the worst. General Walker coordinated with military leaders from every nation to organize whatever defense was possible. Earth's space-based weapons were designed to shoot down missiles, not fight alien warships. The orbital defense platforms had limited ammunition and no way to resupply once the battle started. Everyone knew they were completely outmatched, but nobody was willing to give up without a fight. The aliens demonstrated their power by destroying the lunar mining facility at Mare Tranquillitatis with a single energy beam. The base was vaporized in seconds, leaving nothing but debris. Admiral Kethvar sent another message to Earth: This is what happens to those who resist the Voldorian Empire. You have 12 hours to surrender instead of terror and immediate capitulation. The aliens witnessed something they had never seen before. Within hours of the demonstration attack, every nation on Earth began mobilizing for war. Ancient enemies set aside their differences to face the common threat. Military bases went to full alert while civilian populations prepared for invasion. The response was not fear but anger and determination. President Martinez gave a speech that was broadcast worldwide. "We will not surrender our freedom to these invaders. We will fight with everything we have, and we will make them regret the day they decided to threaten Earth." The aliens had expected submission, but instead they found a unified world preparing for total war. Admiral Kethvar began to wonder if this conquest might be more difficult than he had anticipated. The Voldorian invasion began at dawn on Tuesday, with shock troops landing in 12 major cities across the globe. Admiral Kethvar had used this same strategy on dozens of worlds, and it always worked perfectly. Overwhelming force in population centers while the fleet maintained control of space. Most species surrendered within days once they realized resistance was hopeless. Colonel Beth Adams was commanding the defense of Chicago when the first alien dropships landed in Grant Park. She had never fought extraterrestrials before, but she understood urban warfare. Instead of meeting the invaders head-on, she ordered her troops to fall back and let the aliens advance into prepared positions. The Voldorians expected quick victory, but found themselves fighting block by block through a city that had become a fortress. The alien soldiers wore advanced armor and carried energy weapons that could punch through concrete walls. Their technology was clearly superior to anything humans possessed. But Colonel Adams had something the Voldorians did not expect. She had studied every urban battle in human history and knew how to turn a city into a death trap for invading forces. Dr. Tony Kim was working in his laboratory at MIT when news of the invasion reached him. Instead of evacuating like most civilians, he gathered his research team and headed for the nearest crash site. A Voldorian fighter had been shot down by missile fire, and Kim wanted to examine the wreckage. He knew that understanding alien technology might be the key to human survival. The crashed ship was unlike anything human scientists had ever seen. The hull was made from materials that seemed impossible, and the power systems operated on principles that challenged everything they knew about physics. But Dr. Kim and his team were determined to figure out how it worked. They had less than 24 hours before military units would secure the site. Engineer Rachel Davis was working at Boeing when her supervisor handed her a strange piece of metal recovered from another crash site. The material was lighter than aluminum, but stronger than steel. Rachel had been designing aircraft for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this. She immediately began testing to see if human manufacturing could reproduce the alien alloy. Meanwhile, in the skies above Chicago, pilot Danny Roberts was learning that conventional tactics were useless against Voldorian aircraft. Their ships moved faster than anything in the human arsenal, and their shields could absorb direct hits from air-to-air missiles. Danny watched 3 of his squadron mates get shot down in the first engagement and knew they needed a new approach. Colonel Adams discovered that the Voldorians fought according to rigid military doctrine that made them predictable. They always secured high ground first and established command posts in the tallest buildings. This made sense on most worlds, but in Chicago, it meant they were concentrating their forces in locations that humans could collapse or isolate. Adams began planning attacks that used the aliens' own tactics against them. Dr. Kim made his first breakthrough when he managed to activate a section of the crashed fighter's shield generator. The energy field was similar to magnetic containment systems used in human fusion research, but far more advanced. Kim realized that with some modifications, they might be able to adapt the technology to human equipment. The Voldorians were confused by human resistance tactics. On other worlds, conquered populations either fled or fought conventionally. But humans seem to view every building as a potential weapon and every street as a battlefield. Civilians who should have been cowering in terror were instead making bombs in their basements and setting traps for alien patrols. Rachel Davis worked through the night trying to reverse engineer the alien hull material. Her team managed to create a crude approximation using existing Earth metals and manufacturing techniques. It was not as good as the original, but it was much better than anything humans had produced before. Rachel knew this could change everything. If they could mass-produce it. Admiral Kethvar received reports from the ground that troubled him greatly. Casualties were mounting and his forces were making slower progress than anticipated. The humans fought with a ferocity and creativity that the Voldorians had never encountered. Every block captured came at a high price, and the aliens were running low on replacements. Danny Roberts volunteered to test fly the first aircraft modified with alien technology. Rachel Davis had managed to install a basic shield generator on F-2 fighter using components from the crashed Voldorian ship. The hybrid aircraft was unstable and dangerous, but it was their only hope of achieving air superiority against the invaders. The test flight took place over Lake Michigan with Danny as the pilot. When Voldorian fighters moved to intercept him, Danny activated the shield system and watched enemy energy beams bounce harmlessly off his aircraft. For the first time since the invasion began, a human pilot had survived direct combat with alien technology. Danny immediately radioed back to base with the news that they had found a way to fight back. Colonel Adams launched her counterattack that night using intelligence gathered about Voldorian command structure. Instead of attacking their positions directly, she targeted the communication arrays and supply lines that kept the alien forces coordinated. Without their technological advantages, the Voldorians found themselves fighting the kind of brutal urban warfare that humans had perfected over centuries. Drive Kim's team succeeded in creating their first working prototype of a human-alien hybrid weapon system. The energy rifle could fire only a few shots before overheating, but each blast was powerful enough to penetrate Voldorian armor. Kim knew they were still months away from mass production, but the principle had been proven. Humans could adapt and improve upon alien technology. The Voldorian High Command began receiving disturbing reports from Earth. What should have been a simple conquest was turning into a costly and prolonged campaign. Other sectors of the Empire were demanding military resources for their own campaigns, but Admiral Kethvar needed every ship and soldier he could get. The humans were proving far more resilient and dangerous than anyone had anticipated. 6 months had passed since the Voldorian invasion began, and Admiral Kethvar was starting to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. What should have been a quick conquest had turned into a grinding war that was consuming resources faster than the Empire could supply them. Every day brought new reports of human attacks and technological breakthroughs that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. Captain Alex Turner led a strike team through the ruins of downtown Los Angeles toward a Voldorian supply depot that intelligence had located near the harbor. The aliens had been using the facility to distribute weapons and equipment to their ground forces, but human sabotage had made their operations increasingly difficult. Turner's mission was to capture the depot intact and steal whatever alien technology they could find. The supply depot was heavily defended, but Turner had learned to use Voldorian tactics against them. The aliens always positioned their guards according to standard military doctrine, which made them predictable. Turner's team moved through the sewers and emerged inside the perimeter where the aliens least expected an attack. Within minutes, they had overwhelmed the guards and secured the facility. Marine Corps engineer Lucy Stone was among the first humans to examine the captured Voldorian transport ships. The vessels were designed for moving troops and supplies between worlds, but Lucy saw something else. With some modifications, these ships could give humanity its first real spacefaring capability. She immediately began studying the control systems and propulsion technology. The captured ships used a form of faster-than-light travel that human scientists had only theorized about. Lucy had a degree in aerospace engineering, but nothing in her education had prepared her for alien technology. Still, she was determined to figure out how the ships work and whether humans could learn to pilot them. Dr. Helen Park was working in her laboratory at Stanford when the first samples of Voldorian energy weapons arrived for analysis. The weapons operated on principles that violated several laws of physics as humans understood them. But Dr. Park had made her career by challenging conventional thinking, and she was not about to give up now. The energy weapons converted matter directly into coherent energy beams using a process that seemed to involve controlled fusion at the molecular level. Dr. Park realized that if humans could understand and replicate this technology, that could revolutionize everything from power generation to space travel. The potential applications were almost limitless. Sergeant Mike Chen had become the unofficial coordinator for resistance cells across the globe. Using captured Voldorian communication equipment, he was able to establish secure links between human forces in different cities and countries. For the first time since the invasion began, the scattered resistance movement was becoming a unified military force. The Voldorians had never faced an enemy that could adapt so quickly to new circumstances. Every time they developed a countermeasure for human tactics, the resistance would change their approach and find new weaknesses to exploit. The aliens were fighting 47 different wars against opponents who seemed to learn from every defeat. Navy Admiral Carl Brooks was overseeing the construction of humanity's first orbital command center using parts salvaged from destroyed Voldorian ships. The project was dangerous and complex, but it represented something important. For the first time since the invasion began, humans were building something instead of just trying to survive. Lucy Stone made her breakthrough when she successfully started the engines on a captured Voldorian transport. The ship lifted off from the secret facility where it had been hidden, and Stone became the first human to pilot an alien spacecraft. The controls were designed for beings with different physiology, but Stone had figured out how to adapt them for human use. Admiral Kethvar decided to try a new strategy to break human morale. He ordered orbital bombardment of civilian targets, hoping that massive casualties would finally force the humans to surrender. The attack destroyed several cities and killed millions of people, but it had the opposite effect from what the Admiral intended. Instead of breaking human resistance, the bombardment only made them more determined to fight. Civilians who had been trying to stay out of the war now joined the resistance in massive numbers. The destroyed cities provided huge amounts of salvageable alien technology from crashed ships and damaged orbital platforms. Drive Park succeeded in creating the first human-built energy weapon using principles reverse-engineered from Voldorian technology. The prototype was crude and inefficient compared to the alien original, but it proved that humans could not only understand advanced technology, but improve upon it through creative adaptation. Captain Turner led the first successful assault on a Voldorian orbital facility using Lucy Stone's captured transport ship. The mission was incredibly dangerous since they were attacking a heavily defended space station with a single modified alien vessel. But Turner had learned that audacity and unpredictability were humanity's greatest advantages. The assault team managed to capture the orbital facility and secure its databanks before the Voldorians could destroy them. The intelligence they gathered revealed the locations of alien supply lines and the deployment patterns of their fleet. For the first time, humans had a clear picture of Voldorian operations throughout the solar system. Sergeant Chen used the captured intelligence to coordinate simultaneous attacks on Voldorian positions across 3 continents. The resistance had grown from scattered groups of survivors into a sophisticated military organization capable of complex operations. The aliens found themselves under attack from directions they had never anticipated. Admiral Brooks completed construction of the Orbital Command Center and immediately began planning humanity's first space-based offensive operations. The station was built from salvaged alien technology and human ingenuity, creating something that was more advanced than anything either species had built alone. Admiral Kethvar received word from the Voldorian High Command that other sectors of the Empire were experiencing rebellions inspired by news of human resistance. Species that had been conquered decades ago were rising up against their oppressors, believing that if primitive humans could fight back, then so could they. The situation on Earth had become completely untenable from the Voldorian perspective. They were losing ships and soldiers at an unsustainable rate while making no real progress toward victory. Where still the humans were using captured technology to build their own fleet and develop weapons that posed a real threat to Voldorian. Superiority. Drive Park's energy weapon design was being mass-produced in hidden factories around the world. Human soldiers who had been helpless against Voldorian armor 6 months ago were now carrying weapons that could punch through alien defenses. The technological gap that had seemed insurmountable was rapidly closing through human determination and creativity. 1 year after first contact, humanity had transformed from helpless victims into dangerous adversaries that the Voldorian Empire was beginning to fear. Commander Steve Johnson stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance looking at the alien mothership they were about to attack. The vessel was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built, but Johnson was confident in his crew and their hybrid technology. The Defiance was humanity's first true warship built using a combination of salvaged Voldorian technology and human engineering innovations. Lucy Stone had designed the propulsion system while Dr. Helen Park had created the weapons array. The ship represented everything humans had learned about fighting aliens, and it was about to face its ultimate test. Johnson's crew consisted of volunteers from every branch of the military and several civilian specialists who had become experts in alien technology. They had trained for months using captured Voldorian simulators and had developed tactics that no alien commander would expect. The element of surprise was their greatest advantage. Drive Amy Foster had made a discovery that changed everything about the ground war. While studying captured Voldorian biological samples at the Centers for Disease Control, she found that Earth's bacterial life forms were deadly to the alien invaders. The Voldorians had immune systems that could handle their own world's pathogens, but they had no defense against Earth's microscopic life. The biological warfare breakthrough meant that Voldorians could no longer operate on Earth's surface without complete environmental protection. Their soldiers had to remain sealed inside their armor at all times, which severely limited their mobility and effectiveness. Drive Foster's discovery had turned Earth's entire biosphere into a weapon against the invaders. Pilot Nicole Brown was preparing for her 15th mission, flying a captured Voldorian fighter that had been modified for human use. She had already shot down 12 alien aircraft, making her the first human ace pilot of the war. Nicole's success proved that humans could not only adapt to alien technology, but use it more creatively than its original designers. The modified fighter responded to Nicole's control inputs in ways that surprised even veteran Voldorian pilots. She had learned to use the ship's advanced maneuverability in combination with human tactical thinking to achieve victory against technically superior opponents. Her unconventional flying style had become legendary among both human and alien forces. Commander Johnson initiated the attack on the Voldorian mothership by using a tactic that no alien commander had ever encountered. Instead of approaching directly, the Defiance used the gravitational field of a nearby asteroid to slingshot toward the target at impossible angles. The maneuver required split-second timing, but it put them inside the alien defensive perimeter before the enemy could react. The mothership's weapon systems were designed to engage multiple targets at long range, but they could not track a single vessel moving at close quarters using unpredictable flight patterns. Johnson's crew exploited this weakness by staying within the ship's defensive blind spots while targeting critical systems with precision strikes. Dr. Foster's biological weapons had created chaos among Voldorian ground forces who found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see or defend against. Earth's bacteria attacked alien equipment and supplies as well as the invaders themselves. Voldorian soldiers began falling ill even inside their protective suits as microscopic life forms found ways through their defenses. Nicole Brown led a squadron of hybrid fighters against the mothership's escort vessels while Commander Johnson's ship attacked the main target. The aerial battle was unlike anything that had been seen before, with human pilots using alien technology in ways that defied conventional tactics. The escort ships were quickly overwhelmed by fighters that seemed to anticipate their every move. The Voldorian home fleet had been dispatched to reinforce Admiral Keffer's forces, but they arrived to find a situation that had spiraled completely out of control. Instead of conquering Earth, the invasion force was fighting for survival against an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with every passing day. Admiral Brooks coordinated the space battle from his orbital command center using intelligence gathered from captured alien databases. He knew the Voldorian fleet formations and communication protocols better than many alien commanders. This knowledge allowed him to predict enemy movements and position human forces for maximum advantage. Commander Johnson succeeded in capturing the alien mothership after aborting action that lasted 6 hours. The Voldorian crew surrendered when they realized their environmental systems had been compromised and Earth's deadly bacteria were spreading throughout the ship. The capture of such a massive vessel provided humanity with intelligence about the entire Voldorian military structure. The interrogation of captured alien officers revealed that the Voldorian Empire was facing rebellions on multiple fronts inspired by news of human resistance. Species that had been conquered years ago were rising up, believing that if humans could fight back successfully, then so could they. The Empire's military was being stretched thin, trying to contain widespread uprisings. Dr. Foster expanded her biological warfare program by developing targeted organisms that could attack specific Voldorian technologies. The aliens found that their equipment began failing in Earth's environment as microscopic life forms evolved to consume alien materials. Even their most advanced systems were vulnerable to Earth's aggressive bacterial ecosystem. Nicole Brown achieved her most significant victory when she single-handedly destroyed a Voldorian command ship by exploiting a design flaw that human engineers had discovered. The alien vessel's shield generators were vulnerable to attack from below because Voldorian military doctrine assumed that enemies would always attack from the same orbital plane. The captured mothership provided humanity with detailed maps of Voldorian space and intelligence about their military capabilities. Commander Johnson's crew discovered that the aliens had been fighting wars on dozens of fronts and were running low on both ships and trained personnel. The mighty empire was beginning to crumble under the strain of constant warfare. Admiral Kethvar received orders from the High Command to conclude the Earth campaign immediately, regardless of cost. The Empire could no longer afford to waste resources on what had become a disaster. If the humans could not be conquered quickly, they would have to be contained until the Voldorians could develop new strategies. The Voldorian retreat began with the evacuation of non-essential personnel from Earth's surface. But Dr. Foster's biological weapons had contaminated many of their ships and facilities, making it impossible to remove all traces of their presence. Earth's bacteria had effectively claimed Voldorian technology as part of the planet's ecosystem. Commander Johnson was promoted to admiral and given command of humanity's growing space fleet. The captured alien vessels were being reverse-engineered and improved by human engineers who brought fresh perspectives to advanced technology. The students were rapidly becoming more capable than their unwilling teachers. 18 months after the first alien ships appeared in Earth's skies, Admiral Carl Brooks stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, preparing to launch an attack that would have been unthinkable just 2 years earlier. The UN's Defiance led a fleet of 30 vessels toward the Voldorian staging area at Jupiter, where the aliens had established their forward command base. The human fleet was a mixture of captured alien ships and newly built vessels that combined the best of both technologies. Human engineers had improved upon Voldorian designs by adding systems that the aliens had never considered necessary. The result was a space force that was more flexible and innovative than anything the Empire had ever faced. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the assault force that would attack the Voldorian base, while Admiral Brooks engaged their defensive fleet. Morrison had come a long way from his days as a space station commander, drinking coffee while monitoring routine communications. Now he was leading humanity's most important military operation against the aliens who had tried to destroy his world. The Jupiter facility served as the main supply and communication hub for all Voldorian operations in the solar system. If the humans could capture or destroy it, they would effectively strand thousands of alien troops on Earth with no hope of evacuation or resupply. The base was heavily defended, but human intelligence had identified several weaknesses in its design. Dr. Sam Collins had spent months studying captured Voldorian communication equipment and had finally succeeded in breaking their military encryption codes. This breakthrough allowed human forces to intercept enemy transmissions and coordinate their attacks with perfect timing. The aliens were fighting an enemy that could read their battle plans in real time. The Voldorian commanders at Jupiter detected the approaching human fleet and immediately sent distress signals to their home worlds. But Dr. Collins had anticipated this and used his knowledge of their communication systems to jam the transmissions. The base would have to face the attack without reinforcements or even the ability to warn their superiors about what was happening. Admiral Brooks divided his fleet into 3 groups that approached the Jupiter facility from different angles simultaneously. This tactic forced the Voldorian defenders to split their forces and prevented them from concentrating their firepower on any single target. The humans had learned to use superior numbers and coordination to overcome alien technological advantages. Captain Morrison led the main assault force directly toward the base's primary docking bay, while 2 smaller groups attacked the defensive installations and communication arrays. The Voldorian commanders tried to respond according to their military doctrine, but found that human tactics were evolving faster than they could adapt their strategies. The battle for Jupiter lasted 8 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Voldorian facility. Thousands of alien personnel were killed or captured while their supply stockpiles were seized by human forces. The victory represented a turning point in the war as it demonstrated that humanity could now project power throughout the solar system. News of the Jupiter victory reached Earth just as the Voldorian home fleet arrived to reinforce Admiral Kethver's battered forces. The reinforcement fleet consisted of 40 warships that represented the Empire's last major reserve in this sector of the galaxy. Their commander, Admiral Zethmore, had come to Earth expecting to crush human resistance once and for all. Admiral Zethmore had studied reports about the human resistance, but he believed that most of the stories were exaggerated. No primitive species could possibly have achieved the kind of technological advancement that the reports claimed. He was confident that fresh troops and overwhelming firepower would quickly end the embarrassing situation at Earth. Captain Morrison returned to Earth with his captured Voldorian supplies and equipment just in time to participate in the defense against the home fleet. The timing was perfect because the humans needed every ship and experienced crew member they could get. The approaching alien force was larger than anything they had faced before. Admiral Brooks deployed the human fleet in a defensive formation around Saturn's rings, using the natural obstacles to break up enemy attack formations. The Voldorians had never fought in such an environment, and their tactical manuals contained no guidance for navigating the complex gravitational fields and debris clouds. Dr. Collins intercepted communications between the 2 Voldorian fleets and learned that Admiral Zethmore was planning to bypass human defenses and attack Earth directly. This intelligence allowed Admiral Brooks to reposition his forces and prepare an ambush at the edge of the Saturn system, where the aliens would be most vulnerable. The Battle of Saturn's Rings began when the Voldorian home fleet attempted to punch through human defensive lines using concentrated firepower. But Admiral Brooks had positioned his ships to use the ring particles as cover while directing crossfire at the advancing aliens. The enemy found themselves caught in a killing field with no way to effectively return fire. Admiral Zethmore tried to withdraw his forces when he realized the trap, but Captain Morrison's strike force had moved to block their escape route. The Voldorian fleet was surrounded and facing destruction from multiple directions. Their superior technology meant nothing when they could not bring their weapons to bear on fast-moving targets hidden among the ring debris. The human victory at Saturn was so complete that it shocked both sides of the conflict. Over half of the Voldorian home fleet was destroyed while the remainder fled back toward their home systems. The mighty empire had sent its best forces to crush human resistance and had suffered the worst defeat in their military history. Dr. Collins used the captured Voldorian communication equipment to broadcast a message directly to the Voldorian home worlds. Speaking in their own language and using proper military protocols, he offered the surviving invaders safe passage home in exchange for a formal peace treaty and reparations for the damage they had caused. The message was transmitted using Voldorian command codes that proved humanity had completely compromised their security systems. Every alien in the fleet could hear Dr. Collins speaking with the authority of their own high command. The psychological impact was devastating as the aliens realized their enemies knew more about Voldorian technology than many of their own officers. Admiral Kethvar found himself commanding the remnants of two fleets that had been systematically destroyed by an enemy he had once dismissed as primitive. His invasion force was trapped on a hostile world while his reinforcements had been crushed in space. The humans had achieved complete military superiority in their own solar system. General Pete Walker coordinated the final ground offensive that eliminated the remaining Voldorian positions on Earth. The aliens, who had once seemed invincible, were now refugees begging for mercy from the species they had tried to exterminate. The tables had turned completely and the conquerors had become the conquered. Admiral Kethvar faced the choice between continued resistance that would only lead to more casualties or acceptance of human terms that would end the war. His warriors were demoralized and cut off from supply while the humans grew stronger every day. There was only one reasonable option left for a military commander who had lost everything. 2 years after the first Voldorian ships appeared in Earth's skies, Admiral Kethvar stood in the United Nations building in New York preparing to sign the formal surrender that would end the war between his empire and humanity. The ceremony was being broadcast across the galaxy to dozens of species who had never imagined that the mighty Voldorian Empire could be defeated by anyone. President Lisa Martinez sat across from the alien commander who had once demanded Earth's unconditional surrender. The negotiations had taken months, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Voldorians had lost the war completely and were in no position to make demands. They could only hope that humans would be more merciful than they had been to their own victims. Dr. Sam Collins served as the primary translator and communication specialist during the peace talks. His mastery of Voldorian language and technology had made him indispensable to the diplomatic process. Collins had spent the past year learning everything he could about alien culture and politics to ensure that the peace treaty would be comprehensive and lasting. The Treaty of Luna established humanity as a recognized galactic power with rights to all captured Voldorian technology and territorial concessions throughout their former empire. More importantly, it created a framework for peaceful contact with other alien species and established Earth as a sanctuary for refugees from Voldorian oppression. Admiral Carl Brooks was promoted to head Earth's new Stellar Defense Force, which would be responsible for protecting human interests throughout the galaxy. The captured alien ships had been reverse-engineered and improved by human scientists, creating a space fleet that was more advanced than anything the Voldorians had possessed. Captain Alex Turner became humanity's first official ambassador to alien civilizations with a mandate to establish diplomatic relations with species that had been oppressed by the Voldorian Empire. Turner's military experience and understanding of alien psychology made him ideal for the role of representing human interests in a hostile galaxy. The Voldorians were required to provide detailed information about their former territories and the species they had conquered. This intelligence allowed humanity to begin planning relief missions to worlds that had suffered under alien rule for decades. Earth's transformation from victim to liberator had happened with stunning speed. Dr. Helen Park established the first human interstellar research station using modified Voldorian technology to create faster-than-light communication networks. The station served as a hub for scientific exchange with friendly alien species and as an early warning system against future threats to Earth's security. Commander Steve Johnson was given command of humanity's first permanent base in former Voldorian territory. The facility was built in a star system that had been a major military installation for the aliens but was now under human control. Johnson's mission was to provide security for human exploration and diplomacy in that region of space. Drive Amy Foster expanded her biological research program to develop medical technologies that could help alien species who had been damaged by Voldorian rule. Her work with Earth's bacterial ecosystem had proven that human science could solve problems that had plagued other civilizations for generations. The aliens who had once seemed invincible were now serving as technical advisors to Earth's military and scientific establishments. Admiral Kethvar himself had accepted a position helping human engineers understand the remaining mysteries of Voldorian technology. The former conqueror had become a valuable asset to his former enemies. Pilot Nicole Brown led the first human expedition to explore the Voldorian homeworlds and assess the damage caused by decades of militaristic expansion. She discovered that the alien homeworld was dying from environmental destruction caused by their own industrial processes. The mighty empire had been consuming itself from within. The collapse of Voldorian military power created a vacuum that dozens of other species rushed to fill. Some sought alliance with humanity, while others tried to claim former Voldorian territories for themselves. Earth found itself at the center of a complex web of galactic politics that required careful navigation. Captain Jake Morrison established communication protocols with 17 different alien civilizations that had emerged from hiding after the Voldorian defeat. Many of these species possessed advanced technologies that complemented human innovations, creating opportunities for mutual benefit and scientific advancement. The Voldorian Empire was formally dissolved and replaced with a series of smaller governments that operated under human oversight. The former imperial capital became a refugee center where displaced populations from throughout the galaxy could find shelter, assistance while rebuilding their shattered civilizations. General Pete Walker created the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, which recruited volunteers from multiple species to maintain order in regions formerly controlled by the Voldorians. The force operated under human command, but included alien officers who brought valuable knowledge about local conditions and cultures. Dr. Collins established the Universal Translation Project, which worked to create communication standards that would allow different species to interact peacefully. His experience with Voldorian languages provided the foundation for a system that could bridge the gap between dozens of different forms of communication. Lucy Stone designed humanity's first generation of interstellar colonization ships using hybrid technology that was superior to anything the galaxy had seen before. These vessels would carry human settlers to new worlds while also serving as mobile research stations and diplomatic platforms. The transformation of Earth from a besieged world to the center of a new galactic order had taken less than 3 years. Humanity had not only survived the Voldorian invasion, but had used it as an opportunity to leap forward technologically and establish themselves as a major power in galactic affairs. Admiral Kethvar often reflected on how completely he had misunderstood the species he had tried to conquer. The humans possessed something that no other civilization in the galaxy had demonstrated. They could adapt to any challenge and turn every setback into an opportunity for growth and improvement. The Voldorian Empire had fallen not because humans were stronger or more technologically advanced, but because they possessed an absolute refusal to accept defeat combined with unlimited creativity in finding solutions to impossible problems. The aliens had awakened a sleeping giant that transformed their intended conquest into liberation for half the galaxy. Other alien civilizations studying the war began seeking alliance with Earth because they recognized that humans represented something new and powerful in galactic politics. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had become the hope for lasting peace and prosperity among the stars.